Tonight, an elderly Victorian couple killed in their bedroom by an out-of-control truck. Good evening and welcome to ABC News Victoria. I'm Iskhandar Razak. Also tonight, 3 protesters sue Victoria Police. King Charles delivers an urgent warning on climate change. And its share price is flying high, but Qantas is still repairing its reputation. An elderly Victorian couple has been killed in their bedroom after a truck crashed into their home. The crash happened this morning at Tower Hill in southwest Victoria. Police say the tipper truck ploughed 200 metres through a field before crashing into the couple's brick home.
A quiet morning in southwest Victoria shattered by a violent crash with fatal consequences. At 7 a.m, a tip truck heading from Port Fairy to Warrnambool veered off the highway near Tower Hill, careened through a paddock and smashed into the corner of this house, killing the home's owners in their bedroom.
And the damage and the result and the tragic loss of life that comes with having a collision with a heavy vehicle.
The married couple, 81-year-old Jim Madden and his 80-year-old wife Carmel Madden, were well known in the area.
It's a small town, everyone will be feeling it. They have a lot of relations here.
Local publican and family friend Peter Archibald says he'd known Jim Madden all of his life.
Jim had his 80th birthday here. His wife had her birthday here. They were here last Friday night for dinner.
The 70-year-old truck driver has minor injuries and was taken to Warrnambool Hospital, where he's helping police with their investigation.
Whether it's a mechanical fault with the truck, whether there's a medical episode involved, whether it's inattention, whether there's a phone use involved, all of those things will have to be looked at in the next few days.
Skid marks stretching long and straight through a paddock for about 200 metres show the path of the truck after it left the highway in a 100km/h zone.
I can't say that they haven't washed off any speed during that 200 metres, but clearly they haven't washed off what you would expect to be all of the speed.
In the meantime, the community is grieving the loss.
It'll be a big hole to fill, a huge hole to fill.
Jean Bell, ABC News, Tower Hill.
Victoria Police is being sued by 3 protesters over a rally in Melbourne which turned violent after it was gatecrashed by neo-Nazis. The lawsuit accuses a member of the force's riot squad of assaulting the trio, including one man who claims he was punched in the throat. Danny Tran filed this report.
It was over in a split second. Tim Neville says this moment continues to consume him. In March 2023, the tradie was showing his support for trans people in Melbourne's CBD when he claims he was punched by a senior constable from Victoria's riot squad, the public order response team. The force of the alleged blow rocked him. He fell back onto a metal bench while the constable's colleagues pulled the officer back.
The second he lunged at me, I just thought, what can I do? Just take it. You can't defend yourself in that situation. Any attempt for me to block would have been me being in hand-to-hand combat with a protected police officer.
Tim Neville and 2 other protesters are now suing Victoria Police in the County Court of Victoria. All claim the same officer assaulted them as well and that it breached their human rights.
Hey, you're worried about us!
The arrival of neo-Nazis at the event, already a tinderbox, sparked fiery clashes between police and protesters. Catherine Robertson was marshalling pro-trans protesters when she claims the same senior constable who struck Tim Neville grabbed her megaphone and struck her after she swore at him.
It felt like having whiplash. It was a really violent impact and it really knocked me about. I wasn't sure what had happened.
She was charged with assaulting the officer, but the charges were later dropped. David Edgley says he witnessed the alleged assault on Catherine Robertson, and court documents claim he was punched twice by the same officer as he tried to intervene.
I was punched a couple of times in the forehead, and then with my hands behind my back as I was being thrown to the ground, like I was punched in the back of the head as well.
He later went back to take a photo of the police officer allegedly involved.
It's not the case of one bad apple. I think if multiple police officers witness illegal conduct and then they don't do anything about it, then I think that's a systemic issue that Victoria Police has.
Victoria Police is yet to file a defence and says it won't comment on the lawsuit because it's before the courts. The protesters are hoping for damages and a declaration that the alleged assaults were unlawful. Danny Tram, ABC News, Melbourne.
King Charles has issued a dire warning on climate change while opening a meeting of Commonwealth leaders in Samoa. The monarch says warming temperatures and seas pose an existential threat to the globe, urging leaders to move quickly to slash emissions. Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jedjets is in Apia for the meeting.
A celebration fit for a king. The monarch and fellow Commonwealth leaders together in Samoa, united also in message about the rapidly intensifying climate threat.
Lives, livelihoods and human rights are at risk across the Commonwealth.
It is the greatest threat to the survival and security of our Pacific people.
Charles has been a long-time climate advocate, now on the throne, only slightly less forceful.
I can only offer every encouragement for action with unequivocal determination to arrest rising temperatures by cutting emissions.
And as the leaders gather, another reminder of the stakes. The United Nations warning there's a risk of a catastrophic 3 degrees of global warming by the end of this century, unless more is done to slash emissions. Australia's not immune. Its climate record has come under fire from the Pacific. But the PM says leaders understand Australia's trying to strike a balance.
They recognise that the challenge of climate change doesn't mean that you can just flick a switch and act immediately. We need to make sure that energy security is prioritised.
While future threats are dominating this CHOGM, the Commonwealth's past is also casting a shadow over the meeting, with some Caribbean and African leaders still pressing for slavery reparations. The UK's ruled that out, but Commonwealth leaders look set to endorse a final statement which acknowledges the controversy and calls for a, quote, conversation about the best way forward.
I understand from listening to people across the Commonwealth how the most painful aspects of our past continue to resonate.
The very fact that there are concerns that have arisen means that there must be conversations to be had.
A discussion unlikely to die away. Stephen Jedjets, ABC News, Apia.
Independent Senator Lydia Thorp says she was assaulted earlier this year at a public event which left her with spinal injuries and nerve damage. In a statement, the senator said she had to have surgery and a plate inserted, which has left a scar on the front of her neck. She made the statement in response to media questions about why she was absent on a number of parliamentary sitting days this year. She says Victoria Police is investigating the assault. Qantas has vowed to continue its efforts to resurrect its tarnished brand at today's annual general meeting in Hobart. While the airline's share price has soared to record highs, shareholders and passengers still have questions over how the airline is run, and union members stopped work today seeking better pay.
A broken down baggage system meant chaos for passengers at Adelaide Airport.
Worried about going through security at the moment because the lineup is huge.
You don't know if we're going to miss our flight or anything.
And there's been strike action by Qantas engineers across the country at peak travel times.
No more delays! Time for fair pay!
It's all been happening against the backdrop of the airline's annual general meeting in Hobart.
There is no pretending that last year was anything other than a very difficult year for Qantas.
Selling tickets for cancelled flights and the illegal sacking of 1,700 workers during the pandemic has hurt the airline's brand and will cost it hundreds of millions of dollars.
I can assure you that the issues that caused the difficulties and reputational damage last year have been and are being comprehensively addressed.
While the airline is determined to move on, some shareholders are keen to look back.
As I look around here, I feel the ghost of Alan Joyce in the room.
Disquiet from some shareholders about financial incentives for executives failed to lead to a spill of the entire board.
We do feel that Qantas listened to us and our concerns.
As for customers and the airline's pledge to do better,
I think they're probably on track.
I think it's got a fair way to go, really.
I fly a lot. I think they've been pretty incredible.
in a bid to restore its reputation, the airline is offering more frequent flyer seats and is upgrading its fleet. But its announcement of a $1,000 bonus for employees is unlikely to appease all workers.
Bonuses are a one-off. They don't pay the bills. They don't really lift your head above water in the cost of living crisis, which we are in the middle of.
We are looking forward for solutions that deliver improvement in pay, in conditions for our people, while ensuring that we can continue to invest.
An airline navigating a path out of troubled times. Fiona Blackwood, ABC News.
Advanced military technology for undersea warfare is being tested off the New South Wales coast by Australia and its AUKUS partners. For weeks, military and industry representatives have practiced deploying cutting-edge drones while sharing real-time data, and soon Japan is expected to join the activity.
Off one of the most picturesque military bases in Australia, AUKUS partners experiment with cutting-edge maritime technology.
We're working together to create a more capable, more collaborative joint force of the future.
For weeks, 3 militaries working alongside industry have conducted a series of experiments and exercises with drones to improve undersea warfare techniques.
That allows Australia, the US and the UK to trial and test our autonomous systems in a real-world environment.
Among the homegrown innovations being examined, a large uncrewed underwater vehicle known as Speartooth.
We're trying to understand the edges of the technology and take it to failure so we can improve it and continue to evolve that technology.
These exercises are also the first time the AUKUS partners will be testing the transfer of tactical control, which will allow any of the 3 countries to take control of autonomous vessels anywhere in the world. Virtually as soon as the AUKUS partnership was born, other nations expressed interest in collaborating in so-called Pillar 2 projects, including regional ally Japan. The ABC has revealed Japanese officials were invited as official observers for this year's event, and planning is underway for the country to participate next time. Tim Fernandez, ABC News, Jervis Bay.
Victoria Police have destroyed a $26 million cannabis crop in Gippsland. Police executed a search warrant at a rental property in Leongatha South this week, uncovering what they've called a complex hydroponic setup. 5 Vietnamese nationals, 4 men and 1 woman, have been charged with cultivating and trafficking a commercial quantity of cannabis. 6,500 plants were discovered in what police say is one of the biggest hauls in recent times.
I don't have the actual statistics behind how many we've had recently, but it is definitely one of the biggest ones that I've seen for some time.
And 2 US nationals who tried to orchestrate one of Australia's largest ever drug imports have been ordered to serve lengthy prison sentences. The pair were living in Victoria when they tried to smuggle in more than a tonne of methamphetamine and cocaine in car audio parts in 2019. But US officials intercepted the shipment before it left Los Angeles. Today, the county court heard the street value of the drugs could have been as high as $800 million. The importers, Nasser Abdo and Leona Fayado, were ordered to serve jail terms of 21 and 14 years. Australia's indigenous tourism sector offers visitors a unique window into one of the world's oldest living cultures. There's been a surge in demand for these experiences, but industry leaders say the sector is being overlooked and millions of dollars in untapped potential is being wasted.
From the lush landscapes of far north Queensland, the Mundraby family is making waves in the tourism industry. Their Indigenous-owned and run tour company combines storytelling, environmental education and cultural experiences.
The foundation of this is around providing employment that'll create change through opportunity.
Visitors embark on a scenic boat ride from Cairns, learning about the surrounding environment from an Indigenous guide during the short trip across the bay. On the other side, they're whisked away to a bush block for a traditional welcome and take a guided walk on traditional country. Today's contingent of North American tourists are impressed.
I learned a lot. I learned about soap, I learned about natural stuff.
The company now employs 22 people and welcomes more than 5,000 guests each year. But the journey has not been without its challenges.
When we first started off, the conversation we had with industry and potential partners is, sounds like a wonderful vision, guys. Good luck with that.
A parliamentary inquiry has recommended sweeping changes, including the establishment of a First Nations tourism body to capitalise on the growing demand for Indigenous tourism.
The new body would be separate from the existing taxpayer-funded Tourism Australia and would be modelled on the Western Australia Indigenous Tourism Operators Council, or WATOC.
Developing the Aboriginal tourism sector so it's ready for the international market.
The federal government says it's considering the report's findings. Christy Sexton-McGrath, ABC News.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken says there are hopes that ceasefire talks between Israel and Hamas could begin again in the coming days. Israeli airstrikes continue to rain down in Gaza, with an attack on a school sheltering displaced Palestinians, killing at least 17 people and wounding dozens more.
A race to save the wounded. The Israeli military bombed this school in the Nuseirat refugee camp, saying it housed a Hamas command centre. The hospital that received the casualties says the vast majority of the dead are children.
By God, not a single man, all children and women, and all of them in pieces.
In Gaza's north, at the centre of Israel's offensive, impossible conditions are getting even worse. One of the last remaining hospitals is now said to lack even basic supplies.
If nothing is done to respond to this situation within the next few hours, there will be a humanitarian catastrophe. Kamal Adwan Hospital will turn into a mass grave.
The situation is a byproduct of Israel's push into the Jabalia refugee camp. The UN says that operation has displaced 63,000 Palestinians.
United States and Israeli negotiators will meet in Doha in the coming days in a bid to restart ceasefire talks. The US Secretary of State is urging Hamas to return to the negotiating table. Antony Blinken might be hopeful of progress in Gaza, but ending Israel's fight with Hezbollah militants in Lebanon could be more complicated.
More strikes on Beirut. Israel's campaign against Iran-backed Hezbollah has now killed 2,500 people and displaced 1 million in Lebanon. And direct involvement from Iran itself remains a risk.
I hope Iran is getting the message very clearly from, not just from us, but from other countries, directly or indirectly, that any further attacks it engages on toward Israel really risk fundamentally its interests.
The US still talking about containing a conflict that's spread further and gone for much longer than it wanted. Eric Twarchek, ABC News.
24 people are confirmed dead after tropical storm Trami hit the Philippines. The storm made landfall on the northeast coast of Luzon, the country's most populous island, dumping a month's worth of rain in 24 hours. Widespread flooding and landslides have forced residents to the second floors of their homes. About 150,000 people are sheltering in evacuation centres. A former president and a rock star were just the warm-up acts for the Democratic presidential candidate on the campaign trail. Kamala Harris was courting voters in the swing state of Georgia just 12 days out from the election. Her opponent, Donald Trump, was also targeting battleground states, with polls still suggesting it's a very tight race. North America correspondent Barbara Miller is in Atlanta, Georgia.
A former president introduces a potential future occupant of the White House. On a balmy Atlanta evening, Kamala Harris making her pitch to voters in the key swing state.
It's either Donald Trump in there stewing over his
his enemies list or me working for you, checking off my to-do list.
Crowds here hoping the first female vice president of colour could be about to break another glass ceiling.
History in the making. To see someone with similar color skin like me and a woman. Our democracy is at stake.
She's actually restored my faith in politics.
And if a former president wasn't enough, how about inviting a rock star along?
I'm Bruce Springsteen, and I am here today to support Kamala Harris and Tim Walz for president and vice president of the United States.
Donald Trump, meanwhile, hitting Arizona and Nevada, another two key battlegrounds, campaigning on the issue of illegal immigration.
Immediately upon taking the oath of office, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
The former president also outlining more plans for any second term, vowing to sack Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who brought 2 criminal cases against him.
It's so easy. I would fire him within 2 seconds.
Well over 2 million people in Georgia have already cast their ballot. Early voting records are tumbling, and there's a dwindling number of people who haven't yet made up their minds. But the campaigns are pulling out all the stops.
And when we fight, we win!
As the 2024 race hits the home straight. Barbara Miller, ABC News, Atlanta, Georgia.
A US judge is set to reconsider the life sentences of the Menendez brothers after a Netflix documentary helped a campaign from family and celebrities gain traction. The case has been back in the spotlight 35 years after the pair were convicted of killing their parents in their Beverly Hills mansion.
It was a high-profile Hollywood double murder that captured the world's attention. 21-year-old Lyle and 19-year-old Eric Menendez were convicted of brutally shooting their own parents. They were locked up for life with no chance of parole for the 1989 crime, but now there's a possibility they could walk free.
We're going to recommend to the court that the life without the possibility of parole be removed.
The brothers' story has been back in the headlines recently with the release of a popular documentary.
Everyone asks why we kill their parents. Maybe now people can understand the truth.
There was also a fictionalised series that focused on the allegations of serious abuse inflicted by the boys' parents.
And we decided we weren't going to take that anymore.
At the time, a court suggested these claims were made up and the brothers' motive was gaining access to their parents' fortunes.
And I do believe that the brothers were subjected to a tremendous amount of dysfunction in the home and molestation.
Relatives have come together to campaign for the pair's release.
Their continued incarceration serves no rehabilitative purpose. It's time to recognize the injustice they've suffered and allow them the second chance they deserve.
Celebrities and internet stars have also advocated for the brothers.
They never got a fair second trial.
A Los Angeles judge will make a final determination on the brothers' future on a date yet to be set. Isabella Higgins, ABC News.
To finance now, billions of dollars have been wiped off the value of 2 major companies this week after their billionaire founders were embroiled in a number of scandals, while the share market finished trading slightly higher. Here's David Chow.
Today's best performing stock was WiseTech Global. As you can see, investors cheered after Richard White, the scandal-plagued billionaire, decided to step down as CEO. And even with the 13% jump in its share price, the software firm is only back to where it was a few days ago. It's still down 20% since the start of the month, which is when the financial press started reporting on Mr. White's numerous affairs with women and allegations that he engaged in bullying and intimidation. And that led to $3 billion being wiped off his personal fortune, as most of it is tied up in WiseTech shares. Now, looking forward, WiseTech says Mr. White will stay on as founder and founding CEO, which begs the question, how much power will the new CEO actually have? So while WiseTech bounced back and the share market went up slightly by 0.2%, today's worst performer was Mineral Resources, which is also embroiled in a scandal. Over the past week, this mining company has lost a quarter of its value, which coincides with media reports that its founder and CEO Chris Ellison had allegedly been evading tax for years. And this is currently being investigated by the corporate regulator ASIC. In case you're wondering, it's the same Chris Ellison who famously wanted to ban his workers from leaving the office to buy coffee. Now, looking overseas, share markets rose in most places except for Japan, which is voting for a new prime minister this weekend. In commodities, oil prices slipped while gold and iron ore had a decent jump, and the Aussie dollar has dropped to 66.2 US cents. And that's finance.
It seems nothing can stop the high-flying Hawks, who are sitting pretty on top of the AFLW table. The Narm Demons couldn't stand in the way of Hawthorn's 7-match winning streak, and the tropical heat of Cairns wasn't slowing them down either, as they ran out 6-point winners, leaving Melbourne's finals hopes hanging by a thread. Against her former side, midfielder Eliza West set the tone, collecting a game-high 25 touches and 6 clearances. In the NBL, Illawarra Hawks coach Justin Tatum says he was made an example of after he labelled a referee's decision a bleeping terrible call and claims he is treated more harshly than his counterparts. Hawks guard Will Hickey was called for a contentious foul on Chris Goulding during the dying minute of Illawarra's 6-point loss to Melbourne United. The coach let his emotions get the better of him.
But it's only going to be me. It's on me. I'm intimidated. I guess my voice too deep. I'm too tall. My skin color is different. Whatever it is, it's me.
The Matildas are looking for a fresh start in Switzerland with tomorrow morning's hit out in Zurich. Interim coach Tom Serman says he wants to restore confidence with a win after the team flopped in the group stage at the Paris Olympics. Sam Kerr isn't available, but Serman, he says, a mix of mainstays and new talent to work with an international friendly window will help. It's the first time the Matildas have ever played the Swiss, who are the world's 25th ranked side.
So that's exciting. For them, they're obviously got a major tournament coming up, so it's an important time for them. But for us, I think it's important that we focus on ourselves and getting back to our winning ways.
Cricket Australia has removed David Warner's lifetime leadership ban effective immediately. The ban was put into place in 2018 as a result of the ball tampering scandal in South Africa. A 3-member independent panel has unanimously decided to overturn the decision. Warner has retired from international cricket, but this would allow him to captain the Sydney Thunder in the Big Bash League this season if elected.
This is far bigger than a cricket captaincy role. This is leadership in a lifelong context, so any administrative role, any captaincy or coaching role in cricket. So this was about him, his daughters in particular, the legacy he wants to leave for his family.
To the weather. We had a few isolated showers overnight in the south. The lowest of -4 was felt at Mount Hotham and Mount Buller. Those isolated showers continued in the south before clearing to the east during the afternoon. Mostly cloudy in southern parts and mostly sunny in the north. A cool day with the state's high of 22 recorded in Mildura, Walpiop and Hopeton. In Melbourne, the temperature reached 15.4 degrees at around 3 o'clock this afternoon. Around the country, it was mostly sunny in Sydney and Perth, mostly cloudy in Adelaide, sunny in Brisbane, partly cloudy in Hobart, and Darwin had some showers too. The satellite picture is showing a trough extending up from the Tasman through Queensland, with a thick patch of mid or upper level cloud over central WA and the top end. There's a high pressure ridge extending across the state and into tomorrow. Meanwhile, the cold front will cross Victoria on Sunday. Showers and thunderstorms over the northern tropics and gusty showers for Tasmania. For the capital cities, cloud will clear in Perth, mostly sunny in Sydney, partly cloudy in Adelaide, a possible shower for Brisbane and Darwin, and partly cloudy for Adelaide. Back home, a mostly sunny and dry day with the chance of a shower extending from the west during the evening. Mild tomorrow, warmer in the north with light and variable winds from the late morning. On the bays, 10-knot variable winds will become easterly and increase to 50 knots in the late afternoon, waves below 1 metre. Now, there's a strong wind warning for the East Gippsland coast, a frost warning for the north, central, northeast, west and south Gippsland and East Gippsland forecast districts, and a warning for sheep graziers for the listed forecast districts there. For Melbourne, it'll be a sunny day with a top of 21, down to 6 degrees tonight. And looking ahead for Melbourne, Sunday and Monday partly cloudy, 24 and 18. Tuesday cloudy and 19. Wednesday partly cloudy, 20. Thursday and Friday a few showers possible, 17 both days. That's it for this evening's bulletin. See you tomorrow. Good night.